For more on this, we are now joined by Ziyanda Ngcobo. A very good afternoon to you. So, the President gets to speak for the very first time since Ebrahim Rassol's return, and after he, of course, handed over or did a debrief, with the International Relations Minister. What did he have to say?
Well, the President, it would seem, as I've been maintaining over the past couple of days, that they're trying to, reduce the oxygen around this story, given how also there was an immediate reaction to Rasool's comments that were made at the Cape Town International Airport, where he says he'll wear this title of persona non grata with a badge of honor, as a badge of honor, I should say. And so the President's saying, well, look, he'll be mulling over it, but not really giving any timelines.
Well, Ebrahim Rassol, of course, did caution against what he called the appointment of a white ambassador for a white president. Your guess is as good as mine as to what he meant by that. Of course, not surprising, coming as it did on the back of speculation. If you look at some of the names that have been bandied about, it does look like, the president will look at a particular group of people, shall we say, to give any indication or hint, at least, as to where his heart and mind may lay.
Not at all. Suffice to say that he's looking for a top-class candidate, but we know, of course, there's lots of conversation that has been already taking place about who would be a suitable candidate, what would qualify a suitable candidate in the current environment, the political environment, the geopolitical environment that South Africa finds itself in, and the relationship with the United States, in particular the Donald Trump administration, which South Africa has really tried as much as possible not to respond to any kind of negative, whether negative remarks, whether it's coming via the social media accounts of Marco Rubio, for an example, the Secretary of State, or even from Donald Trump himself. But I want us to listen to what the President himself had to say on the sidelines of that gathering.
With regards to the United States, our ambassador has come back home. And obviously, it behoves on us as a government to mull over replacing our ambassador. The United States is the second largest trading partner to South Africa. So therefore, we need to have top-class representation in the U.S. And that is something that we are still working on.
I watched yesterday the 4 or so minutes presentation that International Relations DG, Mr. Dango had to deliver. Of course, it did seem that he was preaching to the converted. He got a lot of support from your blocs like your AU and your EUs, but also a whole host of countries pledging to support South Africa's presidency of the G20, including, of course, the themes, of South Africa's presidency. And interestingly, hours later, you had Marco Rubio, tweeting that about kill the boer, kill the farmer. It sounded too much, or looked to me too much of a coincidence, that he would do that on the back of that presentation at the United Nations, and where virtually everyone actually said, South Africa, we're behind you and your G20 presidency.
Well, undoubtedly, there's a lot of attention on South Africa right now. What happens both domestically and internationally, what moves we make in terms of our foreign policy, but even domestic events are something that are clearly, being monitored by the Donald Trump administration, because that particular social media post by the Secretary of State was in response to Julius Malema's, the end of the EFF's, Human Rights Day commemoration, where he was singing "Kill Kill the Boer, which, by the way, the court has pronounced that it does not form as a part of hate speech. So that was pronounced upon. However, yes, it's not a coincidence that we as South Africa would have had a platform as big as the UN General Assembly to state our presidency of the G20, what it will be underpinning it. Ziyanda Ngcobo starting off by quoting our founding father, Nelson Mandela, and the principles of Ubuntu, which is also, interestingly, something that Rasool mentioned, during that short speech at the Cape Town International Airport, but also reaffirming our country's belief in multilateralism, negotiation, and mutual cooperation, which form part of those themes. So it's very clear that as well that South Africa has continued to say they'll use various channels for engagement, and you'll know we have a mission in New York as well. The UN General Assembly is a big platform for South Africa to almost renegotiate as those tectonic plates in the international arena do shift. And so Ziyanda Ngcobo making, some firm statements there as he spoke in New York yesterday. Let's listen in.
Underpins and resonates with our chosen theme for our presidency, which is, as the President has pointed out, solidarity, equality, and sustainability. We therefore feel that we have a significant moral obligation and responsibility to advance these ideals. We also take our cue from the General Assembly Resolution 71/327, entitled the United Nations in Global Economic Governance, adopted on 11 September 2017.
Dango was saying, look, whether you like it or not, we are going to stick to our themes, and we are convinced of the correctness of our approach to the presidency of the G20, and coming as his presentation needed on the back of what Marco Rubio said last month, before he even decided that he won't come to the G20 Foreign Affairs Ministers gathering, where he said these things are bad. You know, your approach to your G20 presidency is bad. And then a few hours ago saying, as leaders of South Africa should concern themselves with kill the Boer and kill the farmer and what that does, and stop, addressing international fora on things that you think are more important to you. I'm saying to you, this is what should be important to you. Very interesting indeed. But before I let you go, can you talk a bit about the DRC? Because you had yesterday the chairperson of SADC saying, he's not happy with the pace at which things are going with regards to the DRC. But you heard the president today saying there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was that joint summit between SADC and the East African community. It's about the second or third. They've met several times to discuss how to resolve the issue in the Eastern DRC, and recognizing that there are so many elements to this. I mean, just last week, Rwanda's President Paul Kagame and Felix Tshisekedi met with Qatar's Emir, where they also pledged a ceasefire. There's also a lot of troops, foreign forces that are in the country. There's also the added element of business interest, being intimated to being a part of this. And so what Zimbabwe's Emmerson Mnangagwa, who was co-chairing that particular summit, was saying that he was basically calling for accountability to say, well, we've been having these summits, we've been making pledges, we've been making commitments, but we are not moving at a pace at which we are going to see and yield, tangible results. And let's listen to what Mnangagwa said yesterday, because I think it was quite instructive about the role of these regional blocks.
There is therefore need for us to accelerate the implementation of our joint interventions to arrest these worrisome developments. We continue to call for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, cessation of hostilities.
And so, you know, that's Mnangagwa on the one hand, and that meeting went on well into the early hours of this morning. But today, President Ramaphosa still speaking on the sidelines of that DENOSA conference, saying, well, there's light at the end of the tunnel, but still not really giving timelines on this phased approach to the withdrawal of the semi-DRC mission, the current state of our soldiers as we speak, because we've been getting reports that their conditions are still not great, so that, of course, the M23 rebels are still holding certain areas. And I guess perhaps the president not wanting to be drawn in on those details, given how it has had a deadly, you know, impact, as we saw earlier on this year.
Well, as you well know, we worked right into the night as the joint SADC East African community, and very important decisions were taken, and that is to consolidate a ceasefire, to install a permanent ceasefire, and to get foreign forces to leave so that the DRC can get to a point where there is peace and the lives of the people of the DRC can go on and be improved. And we also appointed facilitators who are now going to be hands-on in ensuring that the various parties, the various stakeholders meet and they negotiate and they talk amongst themselves and find a peace. So for us as South Africa, it was a very encouraging moment. We can now say that there is a light at the end of this tunnel.
President Cyril Ramaphosa there attending that DENOSA Congress, where he, of course, or journalists got an opportunity to ask him some questions about some of the burning issues today. And Ziyanda Ngcobo, of course, keeping an eye on all those, including what he just said there about the DRC, but also comments he made earlier following the return of our, or recall of our ambassador to the United States, Ebrahim Rassol, who arrived back in the country on Sunday to a hero's welcome. And it would seem that in spite of the president's preference that these matters not be given too much oxygen, these matters keep following him. And on the back of today's comments, or rather tweet, by the International Relations Secretary in the United States, which to me sounded like a direct response to a presentation made by the Director General of International Relations, Ahmed, who addressed the United Nations General Assembly yesterday, where he solicited support for South Africa's presidency of the G20. Marco Rubio seemingly not happy that he got that platform and got to galvanize countries and blocs behind South Africa's effort, but also South Africa's choice of themes for its G20 presidency. Thank you very much, Ziyanda Ngcobo.